special day because you guys, I think 3 years ago, no, 2 years ago, I put up my why I quit teaching video. And that was such a big moment for me because I was afraid to share why I quit teaching and I was afraid to talk about it because I just didn't want people to find the video and then think I was like a bad person or something because I quit teaching and I hadn't shared it with everybody yet. But today is my quitting teaching anniversary. I think it's been 2 years now because I think I quit in 2021. And no, it's only been 2 years. Why does it feel like it's been longer, you guys? I don't know. It's so weird. I think it's only been 2 years. Yeah. Because 2020 was COVID. And then, yeah. Anyway, yeah, because I quit in 2022. So second year, not third year. And so I just thought I would pop on here and talk about that a little bit and then talk about a bunch of different things with you guys and also just kind of get ready for the day. I've got to run a bunch of errands. Number one, I've got to send out all of my thank yous for my wedding, which are way late, with Christmas cards. I have to put all of these athletes. I did a testing for an athlete who's trying out for the Swiss national team. So I have to put all this stuff in a document and send it off. It's going to take me like a couple hours to do that. And then I have to finish decorating the Christmas tree and I have to take the dog for a walk today. And I know that probably doesn't sound like too much, but it's a lot. So one moment, please. Okay. So anyway, I'm going to first talk about the Mindset Monday for today, which is that God is God and I am not. And, the rationale for talking about this, there is none. But it's something that I try to remember often and frequently for myself, because I think we get so the underlying message, even though we don't want it to be, is that I am God, right? And that I have all of this power. And first, let me say that I think it's great that people are getting therapy. More people now than ever are getting therapy. They're recognizing that there's some things that are off, right? And that they need to work on. And I think it's great that people are starting to like take accountability for their life instead of just blaming people, right? These are all positive things that are coming out of, the last, year or two. I feel like the last year or two, sort of this personal development, self-help has kind of risen to the ranks, right? And I think those are all really, really good things. Like, it's great that people are learning that, wow, I can make decisions in my life and I'm not beholden to, what's happened in my childhood. I'm not beholden to, just whatever trauma I experienced. Because that, for a lot of people, having trauma in their life is a struggle, right? And it shapes and marks most of their life. And so I want to talk about this idea that even though we have all this, we have decision-making ability, we are not God. And I think this is going to help somebody, because the danger of, even though it's great, like, it's awesome that people are recognizing that they have some kind of control in your life. Like, for a lot of Christians, sometimes it's like, it's demonic or whatever to say that I have some control or some power in my life, because it's like, it's all God, only God. And I understand that, but can we live in reality that we have free will? Like, that's a gift. Like, we have free will, we have the ability to make decisions, and that's a good thing, right? That's great, because that means that same free will that God gives us the freedom to choose him, of course, once he's chosen us. So it's a good thing, right? And we have the ability to make decisions and the ability to have, accept the consequences of those things. But where this becomes a slippery slope, I think, for a lot of people, is that you can get on that train where you think that you have complete control over your life. And this is particularly big in like the newer age sort of thought process, which is like, I control everything. And so whatever behavior I'm doing is reflecting something. And so you get to this point where you think that everything that you do, has a consequence in the way, in this sort of like godlike way. And I don't know if I'm being clear, but let me see if I can flesh that out for you a little bit. So there's a lot of, thought that's like, well, okay, if I'm if I'm thinking this way, then this is going to happen. If I'm doing this, and we know that your thoughts, they do impact the way that you see the world, but they do not control the world. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's a slippery slope, because the minute you start thinking that your thoughts control the world, then you think that you're God, right? Because that's what God does. He controls the world. And that can feel really, really good when good things are happening. You're like, yes, I manifested that or whatever. But then when bad things happen, you're like, I manifested that. Oh my gosh. And that's just a prison to be in, where you're constantly worried about whether or not you're going to mess things up. And that's a responsibility that God never intended for us to have. But I think that we have the illusion of power because we have choice. And so now what I'm seeing is people are walking around with this humdrum of anxiety because they think that they have a power that they do not. And so you think that the entire world is resting on your thoughts, your manifestations, your life, and it ain't. But what a blessing, right? Like, what a blessing to know that there is a God who, you know, who is so gracious enough to give us the ability to make decisions, but then is also completely sovereign and in control. And then I know that, okay, I'm going to make these decisions and I'm going to do the best that I can. And God, at the end of the day, God's got it. And I don't actually have to worry about whether or not, you know, did I make the right decision? Because, you know, if I don't, then I'm manifesting this negativity in my life. Nah, we actually don't have to do that. And that's what I mean by God is God and you are not. So sometimes when we're in these sort of mentalities where we think that, you know, oh, we're manifesting something or we're creating something, we're putting ourselves in the position of God. And while that feels good for a time, when things go awry, it can give us anxiety, because now we're like, oh my gosh, you know, if I don't think correctly, or if I don't move correctly, then I'm going to create this situation, this negative situation. And it's like, God is God and I am not. And so I can go to sleep at night without worrying whether or not XYZ is going to happen, because God is God and I am not. And I don't have to even think twice. I can just go to bed. I don't have to think that it's all on me. And one of my clients made this really interesting point to me about parents, and how when parents believe that their parenting is the only thing that's raising their children instead of God too, then they have like extreme anxiety also, because they think that oh my gosh, in a way that they are God, and that God is not also in sovereign control of their children. And that's just not a fun place to be. So the great news is that we don't have to do it all on our own. And we don't need to do it all on our own, even though we kind of want to, because we kind of want the praise and the glory to say like, oh, I did it. But do you really want the responsibility of when things go bad for it to be your fault all the time? Right? So there's this, you know, there's a fine line between what kind of the decisions that I make have consequences, and also God is God and I am not. You know, it's a fine line. It's a fine line between that and you know, this idea that I am God, and therefore it's a subtle thought that I am God and therefore I have all of this control about what happens in my life, when you really do not. So that's my mindset Monday for today, which is, you know, we don't have to rely solely on ourselves. Like, do not fall into the trap of thinking that you are the only one in control, or even that you are the one in control. Do we have free will? Do we have the ability to make decisions? Yes, that is a gift granted to us by God, but that is not, you know, that's not the only thing we have. And we don't have to solely rely on our own knowledge and wisdom. We don't have to rely on our own knowledge or wisdom at all for success or for anything in life. And that's like, to me, that is so comforting, because, you know, as someone who loves personal development, as someone who loves, you know, just learning, like you guys know, I was a teacher, someone who loves, I don't know if that's still working. That's so weird. Let me double check. Oh, That's kind of weird. Let me see if that actually worked. That's weird. I'm curious. Just a second, you guys. What happens in my life when you really do not. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about, what else did I say I was going to talk about today? I don't know what I was going to talk about. I forgot. Oh, quitting teaching. Yes. I was going to talk about more things about quitting teaching because I know people like to hear this stuff. So I was going to talk to you guys about that and why I quit teaching, and that actually relates to God is God and I am not, like my little Mindset Monday, because quitting teaching really required me to let go on a level that I wasn't necessarily ready for. Like I knew in my spirit that I was done with teaching, but like leaving a profession that you've been in forever to do nothing essentially, and to, I mean, I have my own online business and everything, but it wasn't like I wasn't going to another career, which would have felt more safe and more comfortable. I was just literally quitting to start my own business. So that was really scary. And that's where another point where I was like, oh, I actually don't have to be in control of all this. Like God is God and I am not. So I just have to have a plan in place so that I'm not blind, being like, oh God, you got it, being foolish. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't work out, God's got it. There's a backup plan in place. I have people in my life who are going to help me out. And so, yeah, it was definitely super scary to quit, but I wanted to be free more than I wanted to be comfortable. And that's a theme in general, is that I just wanted to be more free more than I wanted to be comfortable. I got to the point in my career where I was like, this is no longer aligns with my values, and it no longer aligns with my goals, and that's just the truth of the matter. So, one of the things that also bothered me and why I also quit teaching was I was tired of running into kids who could not read. There's this whole thing on TikTok right now that's like Gen Alpha cannot read, and it's entirely true. It's actually, I started to notice this when I was in college. I think I might have told you guys that I was like writing people's essays in college because they couldn't write. I don't know if I told you guys that. And I realized that people were getting into universities and were not able to write. And so on TikTok, there's this thing that says Gen Alpha can't read. I'm going to explain to you guys why Gen Alpha cannot read and why that's absolutely true. When I was in teaching school, so I was in teaching school in 2006 to 2010 because I got my master's degree in education. So I was in teaching school, and one of the courses was a reading course. And it was supposed to be to like teach kids how to read. And she did a little bit of phonics, and then it was all about like sight reading and why sight reading is so great. And the essential message that we were given as teachers was not everything follows the phonics rules, and so therefore we shouldn't teach phonics. Only in America is the exception the rule. Do you get it? Only in America is the exception the rule. So what we were seeing, and what I was seeing, is instead of teaching kids how to read, we're teaching them how to memorize what a word looks like. So they're not, because the exception was the rule, meaning, well, because the doesn't follow phonics, otherwise it'd be THE, we're not teaching phonics anymore. We're going to teach sight words. So when I was taught how to read, I was taught phonics, and I was taught sight words. And sight words were words that don't follow the rules, but we were explicitly told that. My mother was my teacher, by the way. So in schools now, they're not teaching phonics. So they're not teaching kids that individual letters have sounds and all of the rules that go along with that anymore. And I get it. as a fourth grade teacher, when I was teaching fourth grade, there's so many kids, and trying to get them to memorize words, memorize rules around, the letters and all that. That makes a lot of sense to me, and practically, but it doesn't make sense for the long-term health of the students. So what is happening now is we're testing kids' ability to memorize words and not testing their ability to read. So there was something that came out a few years ago called My Baby Can Read. It is awful. Do not do My Baby Can Read with your child. Why? A baby does not understand phonics. What they're doing is they're memorizing words. So your child doesn't understand that B-A-B-Y is B. Long A, because a vowel, consonant, vowel, consonant says long letter. Like, these are the things that I used to have to teach. Consonant B, vowel, consonant says long A most of the time. The baby is just seeing B-A-B-Y on the screen. He's seeing a mix of letters, or she's seeing a mix of letters and saying the word. So this is what they're doing at the kindergarten and elementary school level. I keep telling my husband I would never in a million years send my kids to public school for their primary years. Never. Because they don't teach phonics. So what's happening is now these kids are getting a list of words, and the way that they pass is by being able to memorize all of their sight words. So now there's hundreds of sight words, and kids cannot actually read. They cannot read letters. They just can memorize words. And let me show you how this manifested in my 7th grade classroom. Gen Alpha cannot read. Let me explain this to you. I would ask the kids to read out loud. Oh my gosh, you guys, there was this whole thing when I was teaching. Don't ask kids to read out loud because it's embarrassing for them. No, y'all understood that you never taught them how to read, and so they cannot read out loud. It's embarrassing because they don't know how to read out loud, because we did not teach them phonics. So when a word comes up that they don't know, they're not even close. Now, I was a little foolish, dumb, whatever word you want to call it, when I was first started teaching. So I didn't realize this. So I would ask kids to read, and I would ask them to read. And what I found is they would see the word, let's say the word is a longer word, multisyllabic, and it's got an M, an S, and a T. They would say mustache or mustard, because the idea of actually sounding out a word did not register in their brain. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, we're too far gone. That's when I knew that we were too far gone. We were too far gone as a society. We stopped teaching kids how to read. So they would come into my classroom, they would read, and I'd be like, wait, where did you get that word from? Because that's not even close to what's in the book. That's not even close. But that's because they stopped teaching phonics. And so the other thing, oh my gosh, I'm going to get in so much trouble for saying this. So you guys know class sizes went up. Huge class sizes, right? We used in elementary and middle school, we used to have a cap at like 26, I believe. And I think in some states it used to be 20, right? You could only have 20 kids K through 3. Now it's like, you can have like 30 kids in a class, right? And because of this, it was hard for teachers to teach phonics. It's hard to teach phonics when there's that many kids, because you got to have time to explain it and practice it with the kids and do all that stuff. And the standards changed. And so it was more about meeting the standard than it was teaching kids how to read. It was more about, can they read these sight words, than can they actually decode? Decoding is not a thing that kids are taught. So now what would happen is, when state testing came along, it was like, okay, I just need to be able to pass the state test. So teachers are always going to try and keep their job, right? So they're like, oh, I know how to get these kids to pass the test. Just make sure they practice sight reading. So they used to teach phonics on a lower level. And what happened was the class sizes expanded too. So it's really hard to make sure that everybody is actually on the same level. And then you throw in the mix of kids from different backgrounds who don't have the same schema, who some of them, their first language is not English. Now you have a different set of problems. And Now teachers are trying to teach kids who don't have the background knowledge, maybe their first language is in English, and they're trying to teach the kids who are ready. And that's just too much for a teacher. It's too much. And that's the thing that people don't really want to talk about, is the expectation for teachers to teach 20 different grade levels in a class. They stopped doing, this is another reason why Gen Alpha can't read. You guys want to talk about it? They stopped doing intervention classes and honors classes because it was racist. Because it was racist. And they got this from the idea that because a lot of the kids who struggled in their, a lot of the kids who struggled with reading and math or whatever were either, a lot of them where I was teaching were either Hispanic or Black, okay? And so a lot of the kids in intervention classes were Hispanics or Black. So they were like, it's racist. Why are all the kids who are in these intervention classes Hispanic and Black? That means you hate Hispanic and Black kids. Okay? So what happens when Hispanic and Black kids who are below grade level go into a regular class? Tell me what happens. Their reading level is 4th grade and they're in an 8th grade reading level class. What happens? The teacher, fear of being called racist, passes them. She passes them. I say she because most teachers are she's. But he passes them. Because why are all the Black and Hispanic kids failing? That's the question you'll get. You're not doing enough for them. So they got rid of honors, a lot of honors and advanced accelerated classes in middle school. And that did a lot of kids in. A lot of kids needed those classes. That's actually where they caught up. I think I told you guys this story in my I Quit Teaching video. I had an intervention class. They let me have an intervention class. And it was, yes, mostly Hispanic and Black kids. And I do not care. It did not matter to me. But when I tell you those kids were reading at almost grade level, like they came in at 4th and 5th grade and they were reading at 7th grade by the time I was done with them. Phenomenal. That's what they need. They need an intervention class. To expect that kids are going to magically by osmosis learn something from a teacher in a standard class when they can't even catch up with the material, that's racist. To me, I'm like, you're not giving these kids what they need. You're pretending like their gaps in learning don't exist. That's what you're doing. You're pretending like these gaps in learning don't exist. That's racist to me. And so when we talk about, Gen Alpha cannot read, what happens is you have to extrapolate that all the way out to high school. So let's say a kid is in kindergarten and they can read their sight words, but they don't know how to decode. By the time they get to 4th grade, now they're reading to learn, right? And they can barely read. So they're reading these books that don't really teach them anything. The teacher is pushing them through, not grading them on their knowledge, but grading them on their progress. So everybody in a school is going to make progress so that you don't actually have to be at standard now. And even if you're not at standard, you're being pushed. Then you get to middle school, and middle school, there's no interventions because now you can't have honors classes. You can't have accelerated classes because those tracks are going to only have white and Asian kids in it. And now your school's considered racist. And they had accelerated classes when I was growing up. And so you can't have those classes. So now you have a kid who's in a standard class who reads, this happened to me, who reads at 2nd or 3rd grade level, and poor kid feels like an idiot. So now he's acting out in class because he knows he can't do the work. He knows that he's way behind. And instead of putting him in an intervention class where they can target and teach them how to read, they keep him in my class. And then, I kid you not, you guys, when I was like, why are we passing these kids? Like, they're not actually passing 8th grade. Someone said, well, this is probably the only graduation they'll ever have. what? What? Yeah, somebody was like, this is the only graduation they'll ever have. So now we're passing them on to high school. We're passing them on to high school because we don't want to make them feel bad for not being able to graduate 8th grade or promote to 8th grade. And now they're in high school. And then in high school, teachers are just tired. And they're like, oh my goodness, I can't really do anything with this kid. So they just pass them through. They just pass them through. And you guys, if we want to talk about the testing, like what we're allowed to test, what happens is, as a teacher, you realize that you can't ever, like, your grades really don't matter. Does that make sense? Like, what grade you actually give a kid doesn't matter. Like, because the thing is if you fail a kid, multiple children in your classroom, the problem is you. It's not that the kids can't read. It's not that the kids are not doing the work. It's you. So what do teachers do? If they're honest with you, they'll tell you this. They lower their standards. They lower their standards. So the standards are, you don't have to spell words correctly because now it doesn't matter. One of the things that they used to tell me, one of the things they used to tell me when I was a teacher was, oh, it doesn't matter if they spell the word wrong. Did you understand what they said? Girl, bye. It does matter if you spell the word wrong. Like, that's part of communication, that's part of reading, but that goes back to why Gen Z cannot read. Because if you do not require them to spell well, then you do not require them to read and write well, right? So there's an accumulation of issues that we're not talking about in the school system, you know? And as a teacher, you just get defeated. You're like, oh my gosh, because if you are, so the other thing is, you know, nobody wants to be the racist. Like, that's like the card they pull is like the race card, right? I hate it so much. The race card. Oh, the teacher's racist if her Black and Hispanic and not Asian, because, you know, Asians are the model minority, or any other race of students are failing her class, it must be her because she hates Black kids, so she's not passing them. I would say in about 15% of the cases that's true. I would say 85% of the case that's not true. I would say 85% of the time, the kids just don't know how to do the work. They just can't. They simply are not at grade level, and the school system is failing them because the school system is not requiring them to actually learn. The school system does not require the students to actually know the material. It requires teachers to compromise on values and pass them. When I tell you guys, it was rough. It was rough as a teacher because I couldn't get with the game of, oh, I'm just going to pass you because I feel bad for you. I knew I was setting them up for failure. And honestly, that was one of the reasons why I switched to PE, because I was like, well, at the very least, I'm not lying to these kids and pretending like they're something that they're not. You know, when I was teaching English, I was basically lying and pretending like these kids were ready to promote to high school, and they were not. And honestly, by the time they get to 8th grade and 7th grade, it's too late. Like, this is stuff that has to happen at the elementary school level. But instead of teaching kids how to read, they're busy trying to teach kids to explain why 1 + 1 is 2, instead of taking advantage of the fact that because they're so young, that they're actually prone and really primed for rote memorization. This is a great time for kids to know rules. It's actually a really good time, K through 3, for kids to rote memorize. That's why the schools in China and Korea and Asia do a lot of rote memorization between the ages of 5 and 8, because they're primed for memorization. That means that if I can drill into your brain that consonant, vowel, consonant means long vowel, when you read something, you're automatically going to know that. So you're going to know more words. If I can drill into that FUL says full, I can drill that into you at 8, then I don't have to teach you. If I can drill into you that able, A-B-L-E says able, meaning ability to at 8 years old, I never have to teach you that again, right? But we're too busy trying to teach kids to write about their math, and they can't even understand why 3 plus 3 is 6, because we're not doing 3 groups of 6 is 6 times 3. We're trying to make them write about it when that's not their strong suit in 3rd grade. That's not their strong suit. Have them do that in 5th or 6th grade. So we're wasting time as a nation on, and this is the Common Core curriculum, which I despise. I hate it. I don't think it's doing kids any good. I don't think No Child Left Behind was good for students either. I think we should have let teachers teach. We should have let teachers teach, because what's happening, and what was happening, why I quit also, was I was like, oh, we're focusing on the wrong things now. We're trying to say like, oh, it's important. Our writing scores are down. Our reading scores are down. So make them write more. Baby, they don't know how to write. And in 3rd, that's not the thing to focus on. How about we teach them how to read in 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade, and we teach them all the fundamentals in 1st and 2nd and 3rd grade. And by the time they get to 4th grade, they can be reading to learn and not learning to read. Now, kids are having to write to understand, which is something very different. That was not always the case in schools when our focus was different. The other thing was, we used to do multiplication sheets with kids all the time. 100 multiplication sheets. I did this with my kids. My kids passed the state test. 99% of them. The one kid who did not pass was in special ed. But that's unheard of now. To have kids memorize the entire multiplication table up to 100, you're supposed to be able to do that by the time you exit 3rd grade. So now what's happening, you guys, is this is becoming an achievement gap between the wealthy and the poor. Because let me tell you what the wealthy are doing. The people who have the resources are sending their kids to Russian School of Math. They're sending their kids to Kumon because they know that the teachers are not teaching them the right thing. So what they do is they send their kids to public school, and then their kids have Russian School of Math. They have Kumon. They have tutors. And now the gap is getting wider. So we're wondering, oh, why is the gap getting wider? Because the kids who have the money are going to Kumon and Russian School of Math and getting this traditional math education from foreigners. That's not an offensive term. I mean people who are not indoctrinated with this United States curriculum. So now kids are actually learning these, and these are people who naturally they are in the community of schools that are doing better because they have more money. So it's kind of this cycle. So we think, well, those kids are doing better because XYZ. No, they're still being taught the same thing, but they're just, now all these parents are just sending their kids to tutors and they're sending their kids to programs. So their kids are not caught up in the same thing ours are. That's what's crazy. So if you want your child to learn how to read, get hooked on phonics, buy it, play that. There. So for us, there was like a tape that you played. It was like A-E-I-O-U, our vowels, and sometimes Y. That was like one of the songs we played. And then it was like, then they taught you all of the long vowels, all the short vowels, when vowels become consonants. So there was like all these songs that you listened to and all of these cards that you had to read, and you learned Hooked on Phonics. I would buy Hooked on Phonics. And then we had to memorize them. And then that's how we read. And so if you want your kid to read, I would do that. I would have them do that. And then I would have them read out loud to you. Having kids read out loud, you can actually see where their learning gaps are. So if you're looking over their shoulder or you're reading with them, you can actually see where they're missing, and you can go, oh, okay, we need to talk about compound words, or we need to talk about, the first vowel is long, the second vowel is silent when it's vowel, consonant, vowel. We need to talk about that, right? So you can actually see, but having your kids practice reading out loud, because it gives them confidence too. And that's another thing that, again, kids are not dumb, you guys. They know they cannot read. They know. And they also know, okay, I really need to go, but I'm gonna tell you this. I think one of the reasons, oh my gosh, I think one of the reasons why kids have such low self-esteem today too, and why they're turning to TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and YouTube, is because they also know that they cannot read and they cannot do math. So they have no confidence. They do not see a way out for themselves. We're creating a group of kids who do not believe in themselves because we are lying to them and telling them that they are passing their classes, and they know deep down in their soul that they're not. They know that they cannot read. And then we pass them along to the next grade and say, oh, it's okay. You're great. And kids are not dumb. They know when they deserve praise and when they do not. And so they have zero confidence. So what's their next bet? Well, I'll just be a TikTok star. I'll just be a whatever star, because I'm certainly not going to go to college. I'm certainly not smart enough to figure XYZ out. It's deep. It's deep. And I think, I don't see it changing anytime soon. And neither do parents. And that's why the parents of the wealthy, like I told you guys, are sending their kids to Russian School of Math and Kumon and all these other places, because they know that the schools are not changing, and they've realized that they have to do something instead. So that's why I quit teaching. Kind of. Yeah. A mess. A freaking mess. Gen Alpha cannot read, and the next generation will not be able to read, and they will struggle with critical thinking. They will struggle with nuance. They will struggle with ideologies that do not mimic whatever they're seeing on social media, because it's indoctrination, and it's not in this like weird conservative way that you think. It's just indoctrination, meaning I can't actually teach you, so I'm going to just give you information, because you can't read anyway, so you can't decipher. So whether it's unintentional or not, it's not good. You know what I mean? All right, you guys, that's the makeup look. I hope it looks okay. I'm now going to go stamp 30 or 40 envelopes for my Christmas cards. Listen to some worship music, because I'm now brought down from that foolishness. Are you guys commenting? I can't see. I don't know if you guys are commenting. Whatever. If you're not, that's fine. Okay, you're watching. I see there's 3 of you in here. All 3 of you need to like the video. Do not leave this place without liking this video. Y'all are some silent stalkers. And I see you over here on my page. I'll be back. You'll be back. You didn't see that from, what's her name? But she's always like, I see you guys stalking on my page. Yeah, there's a lot of people who stalk watch, because they are waiting for me to fail. God's got it. I don't care. I've fallen 1,000 times in my life, and I get back up every single time. Every single time. And the day that I fall down and stay down, I will be in heaven. Thank you, Jesus. All right, you guys, please do not forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you guys tomorrow for Vlogmas Day 12. I have no idea what tomorrow's Vlogmas is. I have to look at my little sheet I had planned out for Vlogmas. All right, y'all. Bye.